Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Voice of College Football, Florida State style, and our 220th show. Not off to a necessarily a rousing start here, but we appreciate everybody being here as we get going every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, right here on our Seminoles channel at the Voice of College Football. James Coleman's had some internet issues and had not been able to connect, so didn't want to continue to hold off the audience and make all of you guys wait, but hopefully James is going to be able to join us in just a second, and we can talk FSU for the next 45 minutes or so. Meanwhile, I will take your comments and questions there in the live chat, and I will also look through the CBS Sports schedule rankings. CBS Sports earlier this week ranked the schedules, I believe, in every conference. I see the ones listed from the ACC, and we will see what they have to say about Florida State. So let's take a schedule look. We had no commitments this week going back to last Wednesday to discuss or analyze. And so nothing there on the recruiting front that's tangible, that's been signed, sealed, and delivered. Who's my favorite player? Currently on Florida State, my favorite player? Well, Jordan Travis would be kind of a throwaway answer, I guess. But he would be the first one that comes to mind. Let me take in a season of Jared Verse again, because I love pass rushers coming off the edge with elite top end speed that can get to the quarterback. We'll go with that. Big game. What's going on?
What's going on, man? Sorry. Hopefully we got the Wi-Fi situation fixed.
No problem. No problem. We're off to a rough start between the two of us. I was kind of scurrying around, getting ready to get on here, and we got James on here now. Again, it's edition number 220, folks. Leave those comments and questions there in the live chat. We will get to them. The thing that I was going to get to, if I had to man this ship by myself, was a CBS Sports ranking of schedules in the ACC. They've got Florida State with the second toughest schedule in the ACC, is what I'm looking at here. So CBS Sports saying massive hype, expectations surrounding the Seminoles will be put to the test right away. LSU is obviously the headliner, neutral site, but close to home. Unfortunately for Florida State, neither of those contests against LSU and Clemson occur within the friendly confines of Doak Campbell Stadium, so they're factoring in Clemson games on the road, road trip to Wake, road trip to Pitt, leading into a rivalry game against Miami. That's at home, trip to Gainesville. So the other big out-of-conference games in Gainesville. So yeah, I guess Georgia Tech apparently has a tougher schedule. They don't get to play themselves, which is an easy win to a certain extent. But yeah, that's what CBS is Sports telling us about the Florida State schedule, which is no major surprise. I've always said, James, that I got to respect. There's not too many schools you can put in this category. Respect Florida State's approach to scheduling, because they've got the Florida game to deal with every year, which Florida's typically better than they are right now. And then they go out and schedule another big non-conference opponent. Is there anything that you would like to see Florida State do with its future schedules? Do you care? Is this something you look at? Do you think they're approaching it the right way, with recruiting and obviously success in mind?
I don't really care. I think obviously I think we'll be leaving soon, but even if we stayed in the ACC is a Power 5 school, so you're going to get a bid. You win the ACC, you're going to get a chance to go play for the college football playoff. And even moving forward next year, when they do the expansion, you're really playing. Obviously, you still want to win conference because you want to play for that bye week. But if you can't get the bye week, you want to make sure you're playing to be able to be in that final 12, which, I think it changes the dynamic of college football more than people want to agree with. But I think in terms of, like, you got Georgia that's supposed to be coming up, Alabama, which I don't think we'll see those games, with the SEC proposed to playing another conference game. I actually, if they think that this is Florida State's toughest, or we have a daunting, I think that's what the CBS articles
Daunting
started
and the
off.
second toughest in the conference.
Yeah, if that's what this is, whew, okay, I want this. Because compared to what we've had in the past, just imagine like 2 years, Mike Norvell's first season, actually his first 2 seasons. You add Notre Dame to his mix. So there is going to be a time when we have Notre Dame added to the schedule if we remain in conference in the way that we are. So Clemson is tough. Clemson, LSU are tough games, but Pitt is reasonably pretty good year in and year out. But outside of that, I mean, your Wake Forest that loses their quarterback to Notre Dame. Miami, while very talented, still has a lot of things, lot to be desired, in particular from the quarterback position and the wide receiver position. Also learning their fourth new offense in 4 years. And then same thing with Florida. Florida's in a situation where they don't know who their quarterback is going to be. So like the games that on paper sound very difficult in a traditional year aren't. And I'm not going to try and make somebody fear North Alabama. And I'm not going to try. In Southern Miss has Frank Gore Jr., who's a really good running back, but I don't think if Southern Miss and Northern Alabama can hang with these Florida State teams, then that's a problem. And I know people want to they love to bring up Jacksonville State, but nobody was talking about Florida State as a potential playoff contender during that time. And also, before people really get into trolling, they lost to Jacksonville State, but immediately went out there and still almost went on a run where they became bowl eligible. So like they beat Miami, they beat a bunch of other teams and there were some games they should have won, including that Jacksonville State one. But I just don't see daunting. Boston College is way down. Virginia Tech is down. Duke is up. I don't know what to think of Syracuse. They play pretty good when their coach, when Dino's on the hot seat. So, but none of these games are as tough as NC State, Louisville. I mean, you got to think we had NC State, Louisville, Wake Forest, Clemson. Then you had that. I remember we were talking on this show. In particular, I wish shout out to Jason. Jason's doing very well down in Miami, by the way. Turning that NBC affiliate around. But Jason was just like we were going in talking about 4 losses. And I don't know if you remember, Mark, if you got the tape, but I was sitting there like, y'all are crazy if y'all see 4 losses on the schedule. But we had 3, but even those 3 injuries can attest for that. But that schedule last year was twice as hard as this one here. The LSU game is very difficult, and the Clemson game will be tough. Outside of that, there isn't a game where I believe Florida State will not be favored in that game. Heck, they're already double-digit favorites over the University of Miami. And that game doesn't take place until November.
Folks, basically, if you do the addition and subtraction, here's the difference between Florida State's schedule this season and what it's been in the past. They have no North Carolina State. They have no Louisville. So they lose 2 teams from their division schedule that they have been playing for years and years and years and years. And then they always play Miami. And then they rotated the other game among the other 6 teams in the former Atlantic Division. So out of North Carolina, Georgia Tech, and Virginia, they would have only been playing one of those teams and not all 3. So I got to consider that a net gain. When you're picking up the likes of Georgia Tech and Virginia to replace North Carolina State and Louisville because you no longer have to play in the tougher of the 2 divisions, then that's a net gain for Florida State in regards to moving out of an Atlantic division. That's just it's just good for the better teams in the conference to not have to knock themselves off and have a path to the ACC championship game, even if they lose um, to what's basically been Clemson. Clemson's been the roadblock for everybody in the division for almost 10 years.
Now, if you took Duke, or if you took Virginia Tech off and you put North Carolina on, then I'm like, okay, now that's tough. North Carolina with Drake May, the wide receiver that I do believe they returned one of their top wide receivers. Don't think they have the running game, but Drake May's ability with his legs and his arm, it's going to be a pretty tough one. I think the hardest thing for Florida State isn't their schedule. It's how do you manage expectations? You've never, like, none of these guys have ever been in this position before. So they don't know what it's like for people to have high hopes for you. So now you've got to go out here, and each week you've got to be able to manage and perform like no other. LSU, I think after last year, they did a pretty decent job of keeping everything under composure. But how do you manage that going into a Southern Miss 6 days later? Traveling to you'll have 2 back-to-back games before you have a bye week. And on top of that, you have a early bye week, which I don't necessarily care for. But, if you can go into that bye week 4-0, your hardest thing is the hardest opponent you have to manage is the person that you see in the mirror.
We got William showing up. We appreciate you, sir. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the super chat. I believe he's talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, Kylan Fox.
Yes. The tight end from out of Georgia. Good friends with Landon Thomas, number 1 tight end in the nation. And curious, and I want to make sure I'm saying, because I really want the kid, and I think the mom is awesome from what I've interacted. But it's one of those things where Mama Bear protecting the cup. Florida State fans, and just fans in general. I don't want to just bash with it, but this is our channel. But what I found is that fan is definitely short for fanatic, and they're clamoring because of the offseason. And Big Three Twitter is way different than everybody else's Twitter, from what I understand. There's always a constant bombardment of trolling. So where there's your Hurricanes, there's your Gators, and for the first time in quite some time, Florida State handled business on the field. And sometimes the goalposts move when that happens. So now it's more important to talk about recruiting, because your rivals aren't any good on the field right now, but they're doing pretty good in recruiting. Well, at least Florida is. Miami hasn't gotten high yet, and neither has Florida State. So what happens is you're looking at everything so that you can be the most knowledgeable. I won't cry or complain about it, because that's how I have success with my channel, and that's why people come and see you, Mark, all the time. But I think you've got On3 and 247 that are creating reports and creating controversy, and is getting nothing but clicks and likes. On3 flipped their prediction for Fox to UCF. 247 kept it to where they believe that Florida State, and I believe I'm right.
Yes.
The mom liked Orlando, and the mom did this. And then what happens is fans take this and they take it as gospel, and they run up, and now you're starting to talk, and you're putting pressure on these kids, when I haven't ever seen it work in the fans' favor when you go and you berate a kid for why he's not coming. And I know me, I hate being held responsible for things that I did not say. So it only makes me mad. It makes me want to double down. So, and then the fans don't realize the narrative that was created by the media that we took hold. Batman and Robin is not necessarily a complimentary term when you're Robin. Everybody wants to be Batman. Everybody wants to be the guy. And so they're hyping his friend, rightfully so, but saying he's going to be the understudy when it's nothing of the sort. And we don't even have to recruit in that manner when we could just let the play on the field show. You have Biscuit, Marquiston Douglas, who's a big tight end who can also run routes but get blocked. You got Jaheim Bell. Jaheim Bell is a guy who can really is just a wide receiver. And it's attractive the way that he plays. So I think that's kind of where this stuff is. And then the mom was like, which I love when moms do this, but I tell my sons this too. My mom didn't know I was good at football, so she didn't get a chance to tell me that. She just knew they said my name a lot at football games. But it really isn't. When y'all parents use this, yeah, my baby's special and you won't, not really. Every year we see a bunch of kids get the same opportunity to be the pretty girl at prom. So it's like, it's not new, but I get where she's coming from. So she defended her pup. But I think he's going to the UCF for the opportunity to be the big dog. And I applaud it. Go where you're wanted. Go where you feel the most comfortable. But us also understand as fans, we have this thing that I didn't necessarily have to deal with as much. It's called the transfer portal. We recruited Keon Coleman very, very hard during his high school, his prep time. We missed on him to Michigan State. I don't know if that's to me, that's more embarrassing to miss the Michigan State than UCF. Because I think Michigan State has been relevant once in this modern day football, the playoff, all these different periods. They haven't really played for many national championships, haven't won many Big Ten championships. That's an Ohio State and Michigan thing. They got that. And then every now and then Penn State. UCF at least has a fake national championship the last few years. But Keon came back. You got to keep those relationships. Keep them building. You never know. He may go down to Orlando. Maybe she's never been to Disney World. Maybe she wants some free passes. Universal Studios is cool. City Walk is nice. Downtown Disney. Let her go visit there. Get them kicks out. Maybe in 2 to 3 years, he will be a no. So, and then we'll be all singing songs and cheering and loving life. So, I just think we should all just chill out on that. But I don't think he's coming.
Caught 25 passes as a junior, 326 yards, 13 yards per, 2 touchdowns. And again, he's listed as an athlete, but you say he's definitely going to be a tight end.
Yeah, and I also look at other places. Like Georgia Tech talked about trying to use him as a wide receiver. That's sexy to guys. Like we didn't get, again, another guy. We didn't get Jaheim Bell because Jaheim Bell was a wide receiver coming out of high school. A big wide receiver, similar to Fox. He goes to South Carolina. They say you're not a – yeah, we said you were a receiver, but if you want to see the field, you're going to be a tight end right now. Moves to tight end, has success, but then they didn't use him very well his last year, so he gets out of there. You got to listen to how other people are selling them, but one thing that Mike Norvell and the company doesn't do, they don't lie. They're going to tell you where you stand. They're going to tell you how they feel, and you can either adjust or adapt. I always tell people I want what's best for the kid. It's again, I love The Godfather, one of my favorite quotable movies. When Godfather met with the Turk, and they were talking about trying to shift into an illicit business that he didn't want any parts of. He said, "Man, I wish you the most success. As long as your interests don't interfere with my interests." And that's how I look at recruiting. I wish them nothing but success until we have to play them. And then after that, I hope we destroy them. I hope we mercy rule them. And then I hope they go on and be successful after that.
And there was no bullet to the head or anything after that interaction.
Right, yeah. They're not taking anything from me.
Yep.
It's just they decided to do what they felt was best for them.
Daniel, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the contribution. I will need to explain this one to everyone, but he says Michigan State could have beat Florida State in the national championship game. So what Daniel's alluding to there would be, of course, Florida State won the national championship in 2013. They played Auburn, who had 1 loss and won the SEC. Michigan State could have, based on the formula, based on had things shaken out a little bit differently in regards to the AP and the coaches poll and the BCS formula and all that. Michigan State had just defeated an undefeated Ohio State team in the Big Ten championship game, and Michigan State was also, like Auburn, 13-1, and were the Big Ten champions. So we are reviewing national championship seasons, and we certainly called that into question. Obviously, the Florida State championship is undeniable and confirmed. They were undefeated and won the whole thing. But in regards to who they played, Michigan State had a claim. They had the best claim other than Auburn that particular season. To a lesser extent, UCF and Baylor had claims because they had one-loss seasons as conference champions, but Baylor in particular because they played in a major conference. But Michigan State, they were extremely close to playing in the BCS championship game. Daniel, I don't believe that they would have.
I'm looking at
challenge in that game, but they could have.
I'm looking at the schedule, and a lot of people don't realize. A lot of people just look at scores, and some of this is me too. So I'm putting it in context. So I don't know all of the things, but I know the national championship game, the context of that. Not David Kelly. Oh, what's the guy's name? Anyways, the guy who was who was our quarterbacks coach previous years was over on Auburn's staff, and Jimbo, in all of his brilliance, did not change the signals. He used the same signals that he used. So they were getting tipped off to what it is that we were doing in the first half. That changed in the second half. And that's when you were able to see the game completely turn on its head in favor of Florida State. Whether you want to believe it or not, if that's true, it was a tale of two halves. But when I'm looking at the 2013 schedule, at the end of the day, the goal is to have more check marks in the W column than the L column. And they went 13-1, with their one loss being to Notre Dame, 17-13. But you played South Florida that year, and you won 21-6 at home early in the year, but still, nonetheless, like you had one.
I'm going to remember all these games. That Notre Dame game, they got just hammered with pass interference calls that were just phantom calls. But keep going.
Stuff happens, but you're talking about a Florida State that literally broke the record with points scored. Everybody remembers this LSU offense without remembering that before LSU's offense, Florida State was doing this and not playing the second half of games, basically. So it wasn't even like people talk about Jameis Winston's stats. If Jameis Winston would have been able to play at least a minimum of 3 quarters, I know a lot of times in high school when you have a really good team, there's coaches that take a 3-quarter and a drive rule. No matter what's happening, their starters will play 3 quarters in the first drive of the fourth quarter, so that they can get their reps and stuff that they need. Jameis would have probably put up numbers that would be unattainable. 2014 was when he kind of threw a lot of interceptions. He was damn near flawless in 2013. And that defense of Florida State, because a lot of people like to talk about Georgia, the 2012 and the 2013 FSU's number 1s and 2s on defense all went to the NFL. Like, so it's like a lot of these things that we're seeing. That's why I always tell people, like, don't get so caught up in the SEC having so many people drafted. It's a cyclical thing. It wasn't that long ago, again, that you were seeing entire teams from Clemson and Florida State, even in Miami Hurricanes, going off into the NFL like that. So while, and that Auburn team was pretty good. Obviously, we're talking about Kalen Fox potentially not coming to Florida State. He's going to that coach who was on that Auburn team. I actually think a better matchup, not for a national championship, but just that would have probably been better for TV, would have probably been seeing Auburn play Michigan State. Malzahn runs a spread, and everybody hears spread, they automatically think throw, but that's not how his spread is ran. He runs almost like a power type of spread. It's the quarterback has to be athletic. They get active. They run the ball a lot. They run to set up the throw. Or they'll throw to set up the run. It's a very run dominant, which I will say, if my critique on Kalen and I was giving him some advice, I would ask him, why are you going to a coach whose system has never really produced any tight ends, and they don't throw it to the tight end that much. But I'm not his advisor.
This is how much Auburn ran the ball that season, because this is what I was looking for here. Army, Navy, Air Force. One of those three always lead the nation in rushing, and the other two are right behind them. Auburn averaged more rushing yards than any of them. They were number one in the country, even over Army, Navy, and Air Force, 329 yards rushing per game. That Auburn team. What else would have been a really good matchup is had Auburn not had the kick six and a little bit of fortune against Bama, or the previous game, a little bit of fortune against Georgia a couple weeks earlier with a deflected pass for a touchdown in the last minute. Then you've got Florida State and Alabama in the national championship game.
That's what
That would have been serious.
That's what we wanted. We wanted Bama. That's what we say. I actually probably think I'm glad we didn't get Bama. Like Saban has some. Saban is a darn good coach.
All right, looking back at yesteryear, which reminds me, we're going to suit it up at 8 o'clock here at the Voice of College Football over in the main channel, and we're going to take another string of years going back through history, and we are going to run through, review, and dispute national championships. We've made our way through the BCS era. We are going to 1997 and going back through the 90s tonight. Yes, Ohio State was close as well. If they win the Big Ten championship game, yes, they would have played Florida State. We would have had a colossal Florida State against Urban Meyer, Braxton Miller, and those guys. So you can slice up a lot of different, really interesting games. But the one that was played wasn't too bad either. And went down to the last 10 seconds. So
it was good. We used to say Jesus, J5, and Tom. That's all you needed. Jameis Winston's number in college. It was fun times. Hopefully we'll get some of that with Jordan Travis, minus having the New York Times posted up in Tallahassee because of controversy week in and week out.
James, I'll ask you a question, but I'm going to tweak it just a little bit because obviously you were on the field. So I'm going to tweak it just a bit from what I've been asking everybody else. So for Florida State football, if you could change one game last season, what would it be? If you could change one game in the history of the program, what would it be? And because you were on the field for 4 seasons, I'll give you a bonus and you can change one game in your career. What games would those be?
If we could change any game, I would say Clemson. And the reason why is because I think with that, I gotta go back and remember, but I think that would have at least given us a chance to be able to play in the ACC championship. But we still more than likely wouldn't have been able to get into it. But those 3 games that we had on that skid, you could pick any one of those, and that would have been what you would change. Program history, I would probably any of the Miami misses, like that, because those are the games that like Bobby needed the playoff or BCS. If Bobby would be, then there would be no indicators of Saban, right? Because Saban's got the national championships, right? I'll give you Saban. Saban, when he retires, he should be considered the greatest coach, based upon accolades and championships. But he took it. He was the best coach in the system that was provided for him. But Florida State, for whatever reason, never got the opportunities with one loss or to a top team outside of the when they went to conference, and then obviously they gave them the benefit of the doubt after Notre Dame. But if you make one of those field goals against Miami in those close losses, there is no doubt that you are the best team in the nation and you're going and playing for a natty. I also think, was it 96? In 96, we were robbed of an opportunity because we should not have had. I think LSU was robbed of an opportunity as well. I think if I beat you in the regular season, I don't care how much the world wants to see the rematch. I should not have to play you in a national championship game. Again, I think I've already beat you. You get your chance next year. Let me go beat somebody else. Somebody else deserves that opportunity. But Florida State having a rematch with Florida in the Sugar Bowl, I'm sure it's sold out tickets. And I mean, I was too young to even, I didn't even think I was really a Florida State. I don't even know I was a football fan at that point in my life. But that would be it. And as a player, I would take 03 Miami in the pouring down rain. We lost to Clemson that year. We only lost to Clemson and Miami that year. We lost to Miami twice. But if we beat Miami or Clemson at the end of the season, we are playing in the national championship game. Like a lot of people talk about the lost decade, but I don't really think people understand how close we were in 03 and 04 to really getting a chance to play for the national championship. It was just some wild, dumb luck. Like Miami in 04, we were supposed to play on Labor Day, but people who don't remember, the state of Florida got hit with back-to-back years, major hurricanes. It actually messed up. I was supposed to be in a wedding because that was going to be our bye week that Friday. That Friday, we ended up playing Miami. I was supposed to be in one of my good friends' wedding at that time. So we had to completely change that game. And I think we went on a run again. And then we met what's his name? Oh, Maryland. We played Maryland with shot guy, Sean Merriman. And I had no idea who Sean Merriman was until we played him. And we found out very quick who he was. And that was still a game that came down to a missed field goal, if I remember correctly. We had our opportunities. And then we lost to Florida because at that point, we kind of knew we were out of the ACC championship. So it was just some things that we could have, like if the ball bounces a different way, we're in a different position. And you kick yourself, man. You kick yourself.
Yeah, it's a good point that you make about rematches, because my defense for the point that you made is that it's not the NFL. In the NFL, you have a structured system. Nobody's making any decisions. The decisions were made in a boardroom years ago, and the structure is the structure. And when the results are made, nobody has to make decisions. The system tells you who you're playing next. So you have division formats. You know who the division champs are. You know who gets the buys. You know who gets the wild cards. It's all based on the records, and nobody's making any decisions. No human is making any decisions. And you play a regular season, and if you happen to meet somebody in the playoffs that you played in the regular season, well, for number one, the pool of teams is so small, it happens a pretty large amount of times. Number two, it's just based on the system that's been built and determines, okay, you two ran into each other because you won and advanced. But in the case James brings up in 2011 with Alabama and LSU, and then with Florida State in 1996, there are other teams out there to play that you did not prove it against and have that opportunity. So why not have those teams play because you already cleared that challenge, that hurdle, line up the next guy, the next team to see what would happen. And then you had as Carlos is letting us know, of course, you had the third string quarterback, Marcus Outson, playing in the national championship game against Tennessee.
Yeah, Rooster. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I forgot all about. That's one that if Chris Wiggy plays that game, we completely we run away with that. And then all we needed was some offensive output. And if we don't lose Snoop Menace to academic stuff, we beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl for the third when we played in our third consecutive. So it's just Bobby had some bad breaks, man. Some bad beats.
Yes, he did. He did because again the level of consistency at an elite level is pretty much unmatched. What he was able to deliver, at least unmatched during his time, it was not matched. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're seeing now how difficult, even with Saban, how difficult it is to finish in that top five. That one or two losses at an inopportune time completely changes the trajectory. And it was an innovative time where people at that time, to Nebraska's credit, Nebraska had innovation in a way that like that's what everybody wanted to do. Big guys, we're gonna run it down your throat. Well, Florida State and Miami came in with a style of speed kills. You can't hit what you can't catch, and started blowing away guys. And now that made people start really coming in, seeing what was going on down here in Florida, and recruiting away the talent. Um, that's the best way to weaken those guys is to pull guys away. And I think, like I said, as a football historian, I think that's always cool. Right now, you're seeing Kirby and Nick Saban's tree mainly really just focus on it's hard to lose when you have all the best guys. And I don't disagree with that philosophy either. They got a lot of good cats. Hopefully we can keep. I just saw one of for Florida State fans that also worried about Fox. I know that was one of the questions you asked me. Just know we got a really good chance of hitting Georgia at that position with a commit that they had twice with the number one quit. But I got a chance to see that kid at a padded football camp yesterday. Kid looks good, and he's the number one tight end in the nation for the class of 2025. And just know we had a quarterback out there, a quarterback commit for 2025 that was really working on making sure that he could throw it to that guy sometime within the next 4 to 5 years.
You can catch James at Den Media Group right here on YouTube. Big Game, what's going on over there these days?
Just signed a really good deal with Gator Bowl Sports. So in the fall, we're going to be adding different series. So obviously we'll organize the stuff. You'll have Big Games BS. We'll have Sports Den. We'll have a Gator Bowl weekly where we will basically, obviously we'll talk about the Gator Bowl and some of the things that are coming up with it. But I will have the CEO of the Gator Bowl, and we're going to learn how bowl games are picked. And you're going to see updates, and you're going to see predictions. You're going to see all kinds of cool stuff. They're also partnering with my foundation. So for people who are members, your children will get an opportunity to get a game day experience for the Gator Bowl when the season comes to an end. You'll get on the field, feed you, bus you, do all these different kind of cool things on top of all the stuff that we always do. We talk about sports life and all those different things. We're at 2180, trying to get to 3,000 subs. Once we get to 3,000 subs, we're giving away 2 tickets to the FSU LSU game at Camping World Stadium. We mess around to get to 5,000 before that game starts. We're going to give away 2 sets of tickets. And I don't know if you've looked at what the tickets cost right now. We're talking about that's over $1,000 investment that you'll get for all you have to do is click a like button and share with a friend and tell them to do that. And we do we also will give away $300 once we get to that. And we do the giveaways live when we're doing one of our shows. But I'll probably do a special FSU show to give people the opportunity. But you have to be a subscriber in order to win it. And yes, we do check.
All right. We are pulling up the link right now, Den Media Group. And we will leave the link right there in the chat. So it's easy for all of you to head on over and check out the content there and get yourself in line for some tickets to the LSU game.
Yep. But that's the man, man. And then we're still doing the stuff for the book bag drive. We have one in Orlando on July 22nd. July 29th, the book bag drive and food distribution in Tallahassee. 30th, the football camp. I hope to have my announcements with having what players and former players will be helping me at the camp. So you want an opportunity, get some autographs, have your kids work out with some Seminoles past and present. Make sure you check that out. Jacksonville, August 5th and 6th. We're raising this one book bag at a time. I think we're now at we have 3,000. Excuse me. We've got 600 book bags money raised for that. So we're 3,000 away. We're raising it one book bag at a time, or businesses, $36 a bag. We just had a big city of Jacksonville just came in big for us. We got a couple other organizations that are going to step up for us as well. So any increment, $5, 50 cents, $36, doesn't matter. We're taking all of those things. If you go to the pin suite at Big Game James _36, you'll see what a book bag drive looks like, as well as how you can donate.
Awesome stuff. Check that out. Do some good. Help James do some good. All right. Unless there's anything else that comes to mind, James, I don't see any other comments and questions there to address.
No, just be patient as far as recruiting comes. July should be a really good month. You've got Charles Lester, obviously Caleb Fox commits this weekend. You've got I think Ricky Knight. Ricky Knight commits. It's about, I think this month we should have 4 to 6 guys commit. And if the 6 guys commit in this month of July that I think are going to commit, you're going to see us jump that rankings. We're going to get a pretty good bump in the recruiting rankings. But don't worry about where we finish in that, because Florida State would have to do something that Mike Norvell has yet to do. And that's sign a full class. If you look at Alabama, Georgia, even though Alabama, Georgia were up there already, but they signed 28 to 30 people in their classes, some of those guys who were in the top 5. That's going to get you to that 300 number. If Mike Norvell only signs 25 guys, you're talking about a top 10 to top 15 class. Be cognizant of what that overall, the average score is. All we want to do is be 90. If we're 91, 92 plus, man, we're recruiting on a level just as high as anybody in the top 5. And look at where we're getting at. These guys have proven that you can hit in high school and in the transfer portal and still be fine. So that's kind of just what they're doing, and be ready, and don't get into these recruiting battles. These recruits, you'll forget most of their names, and the ones that will shine won't shine 2 to 3 years. Games got to get played in 23 and 24. So that's what I always kind of bring the rivals back to. It's like, who's going to win the game now? We're not going to talk about who's winning little boys over when the grown men play. Who do you think is going to win? And a lot of times that shuts people up.
You've got a Buckeye on the channel now. They're at the Den Media Group. They just subbed Buckeye Mike.
Thanks, man. My father's actually from Columbus, Ohio, by the way. So James Coleman Sr. is a Buckeye. Just that snow. They didn't have a chance. They didn't have a chance at heck, because I've seen the snows and the winters that have. If December didn't happen, I could live in Columbus, Ohio. But the fact that December, January, and February happened make me like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, those are the rough times. No doubt about that. No doubt. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here. Make it on back next Wednesday at 6 Eastern. Florida State Seminoles Live. James, you have a great week. Appreciate you being here.
All right, man. No problem.